सबको जय मसीह की। परमेश्वर का धन्यवाद करते हैं एक और सुंदर समय के लिए जो उसने मुझे और आपको दिया कि आज हम परमेश्वर की हजूरी में आ सकें और उसके ज़िंदा कलाम से सुन सकें। आपको याद दिलाना चाहता हूं कि हम लोग एक सीरीज़ में हैं जिसका नाम है स्पिरिचुअल वॉरफेयर, और हम कंटिन्यू करने जा रहे हैं अपना सब्जेक्ट ब्रेस्ट प्लेट ऑफ राइचियसनेस। पिछले बारी 2 हफ्ते पहले मैंने जो सरमन दिया था उसका शीर्षक था वाई राइचियसनेस, क्यों राइचियसनेस। हम जानना चाहते थे कि ये राइचियसनेस जो है वो उसका क्या मतलब है। जल्दी से रिविजिट करते हैं कि अभी तक हमने क्या सीखा है। पिछली बारी हमने सीखा कि जो राइचियसनेस है उसका जर्नल जो व्यू है वो क्या है, एंड हाउ इट कंप्लीटली चेंजेस इट मीनिंग व्हेन वी रीड इट इन अ इंडियन लैंग्वेज। ऑब्वियसली जो पिछले संडे का सरमन था वो इसलिए इम्पोर्टेंट था क्योंकि हम लोग हिंदी और इंग्लिश दोनों की बात करते हैं, और हिंदी के अंदर जो राइचियसनेस है इट इज़ अंडरस्टूड एज अ रिलीजन और ए ड्यूटी और ए ऑब्लिगेशन। क्योंकि जो धार्मिकता की बात आती है वहाँ धर्म का मतलब बन जाता है रिलीजन, राइचियसनेस, फेथ, ड्यूटी, लॉ और वर्च्यू। व्हाट इज़ द रीज़न? क्या उनसे ये ऑब्लिगेटेड टू हिज लॉ? बट द प्रॉब्लम इज how do we differentiate between God's law and laws made by humans? If we think righteousness as religion, then we change the actual implication of this word righteousness. Now we found out that none of the meaning and perspective gives us the actual picture of what righteousness is, especially when we interpret in Hindi. If we think righteousness as just duty, then it is highly subjective to culture, nation, and many such branches in which humanity is divided. And if we think righteousness as mere religious duties, then we leave righteousness into the hands of those dogmas of the society who makes law for us. Although these laws are made for the benefit of the society, it does more harm than good. I mean, understand this. To save from Corona's question, what about righteousness in English word? How it is understood? अभी तक तो हम बात कर रहे थे कि is seen in a very negative sense. It is seen as someone who is showing off, to be more superior or rigid or judgmental. It seems the new generation is confused and coming to terms by saying there is no right or wrong. Let me give you an example. I love wearing my best dresses on Sunday. And Sonia और मेरी हमेशा से ये आदत था, they would feel otherwise. They would say in church people should not wear expensive dress because they show off when they wear expensive dress. So they always come wearing shorts and t-shirts. And as a pastor, I would say yes. I mean, God is least concerned about your dress on Sunday. But in a deep sense, I feel the one God one who made everything so beautiful, how can he be not affected by our sluggishness in getting ready? तैयार ना हो के अच्छी तरह से खुशबू लगा के righteousness according to our own standard is always a problem. Who decides who is right? From my perspective, I can see other person wrong, and I can have a good reason for that. And from the other person perspective, he may look at me and think my perspective is wrong. Have you ever noticed that we always feel that way? I mean, try and tell someone you are fasting. You have to leave early for prayer, or you cannot come to a party because you have to attend a prayer meeting. You won't do something just because him at job or school. He will be so angry with you. Can't you do small thing for me? People will always have an opinion about something from their own perspective. And that's why in today's dictionary, when you go and search the word righteousness, it is written as a quality of being morally right and justifiable. But who decide what is morally right and justifiable? Now let us turn to the scriptures. In scriptures, righteousness means to be right with. It always has a relational side, which actually tells me that righteousness cannot be a solo term. It has a requirement to be compared with something. It is not a mathematical term like a straight line which is 180-degree horizon. Religion, you have to be perfect, you have to be like this. It is simply not possible that way. But what does scriptures, when I read scriptures, when we look at Jesus Christ, we understand that it simply means to be presentable in the sight of significant other. Your desire to be found pleasing to someone you want to please. Once you think of this, suddenly you have a very different implication to the word righteousness. It is not about you. It is about that significant other. Although you work on yourself to be the best, to the best of your ability, to be presentable, just like when you put on makeup, you work hard on yourself to be best of your ability, है ना. आप अपने आप को सबसे अच्छा खूबसूरत दिखाने के लिए मेहनत करते हैं, but you do not do it for yourself, you do it for other. You do not carry mirror along, है ना. वैसे तो लेडीज अपने पर्स में रखती है और बीच बीच पे वो देखती रहती हैं, लेकिन वो लेके ऐसे चलती नहीं, वो अपने आप को देख के खुश नहीं होती. वो अपने आप का मेकअप करती हैं, अपने आप को तैयार करते हैं दूसरों के लिए, ताकि हम दूसरों के सामने प्रेजेंटेबल हो सके. So basically, righteousness is heavily dependent on the significant one which you decide for yourself. That's significant. Pleasing that significant one gives you peace and satisfaction about yourself. I mean, technically, it is your desire to be loved by that significant one, or your love for that significant one, which decides how far you will go to be right for that person. वो व्यक्ति जिसको आप पसंद करते हैं, डिज़ायर करते हैं, प्यार करते हैं, उसके लिए किस हद तक जाएंगे आप सही होने के लिए. लेट मी गिव यू एन एग्जाम्पल. आई मीन, आप किसी जॉब को पसंद करते हैं, आप किसी कंपनी को पसंद करते हैं, एंड यू विल बी ऑलवेज अंडर वेरी हैवी स्ट्रेस टू डू इट थिंग्स राइट देयर वे. उनके स्टैंडर्ड के अकॉर्डिंगली आप ठीक करें अपने आप को, और यू विल try your best. You want to date someone you desire, जिसको आप पसंद करते हैं, आपको वो भा गया है. You will work out to be good according to that person's choice. If you talk too much, अगर आपको लगता है कि आपको किसी ने बताया कि तुम बातें बहुत करते हो, वो उस व्यक्ति को बातें ज़्यादा पसंद नहीं है, तो खामोश रहना. So what you will do? You will control yourself not to talk. You will control yourself. If the other person doesn't like you laughing a lot, then you will control yourself not to laugh. I mean, you will control. I mean, it is something you struggle with every day. This is how we survive. If you think carefully, that is your concern, which you battle every day. This is your concern, you battle with it every day. You'll always have someone to please. So if you think righteousness is an abstract term and you do not require, since you are not religious person, you are wrong, because as a matter of fact, you always try to be righteous for someone. You want to be acceptable by someone. You always strive to be up to some standard so that you are acceptable in that significant one's sight. For that reason, इसी कारण you hide, आप छुपाते हैं, आप कवर अप करते हैं अपने फ्लॉज को, आप उसके ऊपर काम करते हैं. That flaws can be your habit, your physical flaw, or even your personality flaw, but you work on it. We do this because we do not want to be rejected. हम नहीं चाहते कि कोई हमें reject करे, but we want to be acceptable. I mean, look at in arranged marriage. माँ अपनी बेटी को जब लोग आते हैं, तो एक माँ जो समझती है कि मेरी बेटी में इस बात की कमी है, इस बात की कमी है, इस बात की कमी है, उसको कितना बांध के रखती है और उनको कितना समझाती है कि भाई जब वो आ रहे हैं तुझे लड़के वाले देखने, तो तुझे उनके सामने इस तरह से बिहेव करना है, ऐसे करना है. आई मीन, छोटी सी बड़ी बात को लेके छोटी सी छोटी बात को भी आप ले लें. छोटी सी बात है, आपके बाल कैसे काटने हैं. आजकल छोटे बच्चों को पता होता है कि आपके बाल काटने के पीछे दे नीड टू बी एक्सेप्टेबल इन among their friends. I mean, look at the dress code. We don't want to be embarrassed wearing a wrong dress, and we spend so much money just to find ourselves acceptable in sight of others. Why people suicide today? When they feel invaluable टू हु, किसकी नज़र में वो इनवैल्यूएबल अपने आप को फील करते हैं कि वो अपने आप को अपने प्राण दे देते हैं. So where did we get to? What do we understand from this? We understand that our understanding of righteousness comes from understanding that we all have some flaws and blemishes. हमें ये पता है कि हम सब में कुछ ना कुछ कमी है और हमें कुछ ना कुछ फ्लॉज हैं, एंड वी ऑल fight to live to some standard so that we can be presentable to the one we chose to please or we choose to please, and we struggle in this concern. The truth is, we all are struggling with righteousness, and we all need a breastplate of righteousness. That is why Paul tells us here. The world tries to give up a lot of answer, and Bible tells us that the only protection you have and which works is the breastplate of God's righteousness. देखिए, this is how the world around us try to answer the question of righteousness. Psychologically, हालांकि ये सुनने में बड़ा अच्छा रहता है, they tell you don't live to please others, just please yourselves. Live up to your own standard, although it sounds amazing, but it does not work. One, because you have to be satisfied with your own minimum standard. It sounds positive, but it is not. The only way even the psychologists say it works is that it helps you to, for a moment, to forget your flaws and move ahead so that you can still go ahead and achieve. Because think of this: if I make an art work and I don't want to listen to anyone how I did, I just keep it to my own standard, then technically I would say my standard is very low because I don't want to compete. Now, सोशोलॉजिकली अगर इसको समझना चाहें, हमारी सोसाइटी किस तरह से राइचसनेस को देखती है, देन वी विल अंडरस्टैंड दैट इट इज़ अ पावर गेम. मेजॉरिटी डिसाइड्स द पावर. इफ मोर पीपल डू सेम थिंग, it becomes a standard. Sociologically, unacceptable people, when they come together, they make a movement, and that movement, when becomes powerful, it pushes the society to accept certain things, no matter how unacceptable it is. Let me give you an example. In a man's society, women were not allowed earlier to work, to study. जो लड़कों के काम होते थे, उनको कहा जाता था ये मर्दों के काम है, औरतों को ये करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. ना 1960 के अंदर there was a feminist movement. That movement allowed women to work in men's job. Today it is a standard. Homosexuality, देखिए, कुछ जो मेजॉरिटी लोग जो सोचते थे कि ये जो मूवमेंट बनाई जाए इसको, और ये जो हम जो स्टैंडर्ड है मैरिज का, इसको स्टैंडर्ड से हम इसके अंदर नहीं आते हैं, इसको हमें लेके आना है. सो दे मेड इट सो पावरफुल. नाउ दैट हैज बिकम अ स्टैंडर्ड. होमोसेक्सुअलिटी इज नाउ अ स्टैंडर्ड. सो sociologically, it is not a matter of right or wrong. It is a matter of how powerful and famous your movement is. And that movement is acceptable in the society because of your power and majority, and has now become a standard, and it's been accepted in the society. But we talk about theology. Theologically, we believe Bible has an answer. And when we talk about Bible, we need to go all the way to the very beginning. And Bible talks about Genesis, in the creation account, when Adam and Eve, they were created by God in that garden. Bible tells us that they were naked. They were naked, and they were not ashamed. They were not ashamed. And what does it tell? It tells me, in the other words, that they were completely presentable to themselves, and they were completely presentable to God. They have no doubt. They did not spend time hiding and covering their flaws. They saw their glory, their identity, their individualism, and their physicality through the eyes of their beholder, and that was God alone. In their heart, the only person matter was God, His love, His judgment, until they got corrupted by sin. What happened? Suddenly, they started to see themselves from their own perspective, each other's perspective. They started to cover their flaws by fig leaves. The fig leaves represented our own righteousness. That is what Paul tells us. Romans chapter 1, verses 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against the ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppresses the truth. Romans 10:3 में लिखते हैं, for being ignorant of the righteousness of God and seeking to establish their own, they did not submit to God's righteousness. What are we doing? We are in business of patching up, covering up with fig leaves. Underneath, we know we are not right. We have flaws. But we ignore God totally and we see ourselves through eyes of others. And that gives us satisfaction. For an example, I can now sleep well thinking how good I have reached. I sleep thinking how good everybody thinks of me. I sleep well thinking I got promotion. My boss likes me. He thinks good of me. My husband thinks good of me. My wife thinks good of me. The world think good of me. I don't want to question that nothing is hidden from God. What does God think of me? I don't care. As long as I can make fool of people around me, and as long as I can work hard to make people happy, those who are around me, that's my own righteousness. और पॉल क्या कहता है कि वो जो हमारी झूठी धार्मिकता है उससे हम अपने आप को ढांकने की कोशिश करते हैं. Friends, the righteousness Paul talking here is not the righteousness that you have developed. It's not the righteousness of God, but the righteousness that you have developed for yourself. But what we want is the righteousness which God develops for us. Many people who take Christianity as a religion would say, I know what to do. I know I will follow all the rules. I will follow all the 10 commandments. I will work out for myself. I will read Bible. I will be good with others. I will give offering. And I'm going to put it all together and I will give it to God and by my righteousness. But Christianity is not you putting together your righteousness and giving it to God, but God putting it together and offering it free to you. These are the two opposites and different kinds of understanding. How can we wear this righteousness? We wear this righteousness by faith alone. It's difficult, but yes, that's faith alone. What James says, without work, the faith is dead. That is what he means. He means to have faith means your action should speak that you rely on God's righteousness. We live by faith, but we live as if we are still working through our righteousness, and which is wrong. We live by faith, but we keep working on our righteousness. Listen to what Martin Luther says. God's righteousness is passive righteousness. No religious law and activity can make you eligible and get you that. It is a perfect righteousness. It is rooted in what Christ already did. It's free because when we were yet in the sin, when we were yet not able to pay it back, it was all done for us by Christ. That is how you wear it. You need to wear it every day. You need to be reminded this every day. Wearing a breastplate of God's righteousness is reminding yourself every day, every moment, that we have Jesus our advocate because he has given us his righteousness. This is the only thing that will make you stand in the war against spiritual war, against Satan in the spiritual war. This will tell you no matter what stage of your life you're always ready to die and be with the Lord because your life is not dependent on your righteousness. As a human, when I think of death, I feel yes, I'm ready. If I ask someone, are you ready? People will always say, I feel no, give me a few more days. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better wife. I want to be better children. Why? How can you do that? And I would say that is the reason Christ died. That is the reason Christ's righteousness worked for us. And then, I'm not justifying sin. Sin will always be sin. Nobody can say sin is a good thing. But this is what Holy Spirit always say, come, come, come. Jesus said, थके मंदे बोझ से दबे हुए लोगों मेरे पास आओ मैं तुम्हें आराम दूंगा. This is what devil say. How dare can you? How can you go away? I don't want to hide, cover up. This is what These were same Adam and Eve. They were in the garden. They were walking around Jesus. They were walking around God, and they had no fear of whether they are presentable or not. They were not ashamed of anything, as if God has never seen them naked. The same God who made them, created them naked, is right now, and they're hiding. And they are hiding regardless of what they have put their righteousness. So this is what important thing you need to understand. They have made themselves fig leaves. They have made themselves fig leaves to hide themselves. So they are technically they're not naked. But this is what they say. God said, why are you hiding yourself? They say, we are hiding because we are naked. And God said, who told you? तुम्हें किसने जता दिया कि तुम नंगे हो? They had their clothes on, but still they cannot stand in front of God. This is what happened. Bible tells us कि हमारे जो अच्छे काम हैं वो मैले चिथड़ों के समान है परमेश्वर के सामने. जब हम आते हैं उसकी प्रेजेंस के सामने तो हमारे अच्छे कामों की जो वैल्यू है उसकी धार्मिकता के सामने जीरो है. And that is where Bible tells us where what God gives you, where what God gives you, His Son's righteousness, परमेश्वर की धार्मिकता. जब परमेश्वर के बनाए हुए उस बलिदान किए हुए कपड़े को परमेश्वर ने उनको दिया, they have to remove that fig tree. Remember always, they have to remove that fig leaves. जो पत्तों के झाड़ों के कपड़े बनाए थे उसको उतार के उनको परमेश्वर की धार्मिकता पहनी हुई. That is an offer today. That is an offer today. That is a breastplate of righteousness, God's righteousness. Would you wear that today? Would you wear that today and be ready to fight any spiritual war which comes in front of you? God bless you. खुदा बाप, खुदा बेटे और पाक रूह के नाम से आमीन.